YouTubers. When I was a teenager, it was wartime, of course, and things were very austere, and whilst like most young people I was into music, the music that I heard was not very interesting to me. We did have a radio, but it was powered by Leclanché wet cells, which needed charging frequently, and therefore we restricted our listening to news items about the war and followed the progress of the war. But of course there was music played, but it was dance music mainly, and I didn't find it very interesting. But I did have a clockwork wind-up gramophone in my bedroom, and well, I guess I bought some of the popular songs of the day, but it was when I came across a very old scratchy 78 rev per minute record of an American band called King Oliver, which was recorded I think in the 1930s and was American jazz music, which really excited me more than the stuff I was used to listening to, and so I followed American jazz for some while, and until I came across some recordings of some of the black American blues artists playing their blues from the Delta in Mississippi, and that really has been a passion of mine ever since. I love blues and soul and gospel music, and recently I've had the pleasure of looking again at a series of films by Martin Scorsese, where there are 7 directors who have made their films where they talk about the blues and how it has influenced music of today, from rock and roll and bebop and hip-hop, and really I've always found it difficult to explain why I like the blues, but one director of one of the films I think explains it much better than I could, and I would like to present his discussion about the blues music that I love so much.
I guess the roots of the blues, as well as the roots of sacred music, spirituals, are very much the same. Come out of slavery, come from Africa. Black people who started to work in America in the late 19th century, early 20th century. So it's in its origin certainly African. And simple rhythm, simple patterns, related on one side to spiritual matters, faith, hope, trust in God, or on the opposite side of the same coin, to hardship and complaint and longing for a better life. The tension between gospel and blues, or the gap between the sacred and the profane, is sort of a strange demarcation line that goes across the entire history of the blues. It's sort of a border area where there's some traffic going across in each direction, and a lot of bands who would play Saturday night and on Sunday morning, or musicians on Sunday morning in church and Saturday night in the blues clubs, but it was 2 lives that were incompatible. a lot of blues musicians sort of traveled between the two lives. Others could only live inside one of them, and then at one point in their life would break with that life, like Skip James, who from one day to another stepped out of the history of the blues, never played the blues again for 30 years and became a minister. And that is not just him. A lot of blues musicians sort of felt that they had to leave the devil's music behind in order to play God's music. Others traveled easily between the two, but others never traveled, like Blind Willie Johnson, who only sang sacred music, never touched a single secular song, although his techniques, especially his bottleneck style, are the finest in blues history. And of course, as far as guitar playing, as far as rhythm, as far as singing is concerned, it's the same music. The blues is utterly emotional music. It's got a very simple pattern inside which musicians take enormous liberties. And I like that juxtaposition of a frame, a structure that is simple, inside which a lot of freedom can play out. It's also truly existential music. The blues music really deals with all kinds of troubles, with all kinds of worries and sorrows, with hardship, and you can easily identify with its subject. It's the best music to hear when you're down and when you need comfort. It's very strong rhythmically, and in a way it's at the roots of both jazz and rock and roll. And I was a jazz fan when I grew up. In my early 20s, I played saxophone, and I was heavily influenced by John Coltrane. And later on I got into rock and roll, and especially the English versions of the blues and rock and roll. And the old blues and the blues pattern is really at the origin of all of that.